For anyone looking for a concrete takeaway about former President Trump's influence on the midterms, well, you may have to wait just a little bit longer. In West Virginia, the Trump-backed Alex Mooney beat David McKinley in a contest featuring two House Republican incumbents forced to run against each other in a redistricting shakeup. But it was a different story in Nebraska. Jim Pillen, who enjoyed the backing of the party establishment, beat the Trump-endorsed candidate Charles Herbster. A series of sexual misconduct allegations that surfaced late in the race damaged Herbster's standings. He denied those allegations. CBS News chief election and campaign correspondent Robert Costa joins me now. So, Robert, last night is being described in political shorthand as a split decision for former President Trump. Is that an oversimplification?
Major, great to be with you. What we're looking at is a test of the political brand for the former president in race after race. And on Tuesday night, it was another test. It was a split decision on the surface. But as a political analyst, as a reporter, I never want to read too much into a race, especially where there are allegations of sexual misconduct. We saw in 2017 in Alabama, Trump endorsed Roy Moore. Moore ends up losing the general election. Is that because Trump's endorsement wasn't enough, or is it partly because of the character of the candidate and those allegations? That same lesson could be applied in Nebraska. Did Herbster lose because the Trump endorsement wasn't enough? Perhaps, but also he might have lost because the business community, the Republican voter in Nebraska said, we're going to go with the veterinarian who's close to the University of Nebraska, Mr. Pillen, and have him as our candidate for U.S. Senate, for governor. So we're looking ahead, and the Trump political brand remains powerful. But in upcoming states like Pennsylvania and Georgia, it's not seemingly everything. There are other factors to consider.
And let's talk about Pennsylvania for a moment. Are you detecting among those close to the former president anxiety about the trajectory of the Pennsylvania Senate candidate endorsed by the former president, Mehmet Oz?
There's a lot of anxiety, Major, because when the Trump political allies, his political advisors, look at Pennsylvania, they feel like Dr. Mehmet Oz is picking up support among many Trump supporters, among women in particular who may have watched him over the years on television, men as well. But you're also looking at Kathy Barnett, this conservative firebrand who frames herself politically as someone in the Trump mold. She doesn't have Trump's endorsement, but she has been gaining traction in the polls. And you now see Barnett gunning for that Oz voter in the same way Oz is saying to those voters, he's the Trump candidate. At the same time, you also have David McCormick, who is running as someone who's very pro-MAGA, pro-Trump, but doesn't have the endorsement, but is a little bit more from the business side of the Republican Party. So this is a very much a crowded field and a toss-up at this point, according to the polling. And the Trump people are saying to me behind the scenes, we think Oz has a chance, but we don't think it's by any means guaranteed.
And Bob, one of the things that might be happening in this race is something that we see in races that don't have the former president's endorsement involved, meaning the two top candidates spend so much time focusing on one another and each other's opposition research, attacks, and whatnot. Somebody not named those two candidates finds a way to split that seam and come right up the middle. Not to say that Barnett is up the middle, but finds another lane for herself while those two spend all their time attacking one another.
And that could be the case in Pennsylvania. You look at Barnett coming up the side now for that same block of Trump voters, going right at Dr. Oz. Could David McCormick, who's been struggling, find a way to pull together the Pat Toomey voters in Pennsylvania, the Tom Ridge voters, those who are a little bit more in suburban Philadelphia, suburban Pittsburgh, on the moderate side of the Republican Party? Could he build a last-minute coalition as the two Trump core base candidates fight each other? It's possible, and McCormick has certainly been canvassing the state, advertising across the state. And we saw Major in Ohio that Matt Dolan, the state senator there, came up late as a sort of centrist Republican as the other Trump favorites fought each other.
And you've spent time talking to those voters in Ohio and elsewhere, but particularly Ohio. When you talk to them about the power of the Trump endorsement, what do they tell you?
It's so intriguing, Major, because they say they still respect President Trump. They're looking for his cue, but they're not necessarily going to follow his cue. In Ohio, J.D. Vance got a boost from the Trump endorsement, but so many voters we encountered out there said, hey, we like the former president. We'd vote for him in 2024, but we sometimes think he gets, quote, bad advice. We heard that again and again. There were suspicions about J.D. Vance, whether he was a true Trump supporter based on comments he had made in the past, sharp criticism of Trump. And you see those same suspicions in Pennsylvania of Dr. Oz. Is he really someone from the Trump wing of the Republican Party? Is he someone who really will represent the MAGA agenda? So they're looking to Trump to help guide them. But it's interesting how they can have affection for the former president politically, but not necessarily be in lockstep with him endorsement after endorsement.
And real quick, Bob, one of the things that happens in Washington is we sort of get into a circular conversation. It would seem worth pointing out that the power of any endorsement is measured in part during a primary within that party, but it is most sufficiently and importantly measured in a general election, when that endorsement not just creates a winner in a primary, but a winner statewide. That's in statewide races.
That is so true, Major, because the real challenge for Republicans right now is that in November, they have a chance to win the Senate majority. If some of these Trump candidates come through, let's say Kathy Barnett wins the nomination next week in Pennsylvania, can she really beat the Democratic nominee, whether it's Connor Lamb, the congressman, or the lieutenant governor, John Fetterman? Or will that be a race that will be very difficult for Republicans if opposition research is really significant against Barnett in a general? A lot of speculation there, but that's the worry for Republicans. Would some Trump candidates not be as best positioned as maybe a Dave McCormick could be, should he be the nominee? But the Trump voter says they want a Trump candidate in those slots, and that's where Trump's trying to keep the party in his image politically, and he wants his fingerprints over the slate of candidates in Pennsylvania and across the country.
Breaking it all down for us. Robert Costa, thanks so much.
Thank you.